1206 The Mongol Steppes. A 44-year-old warrior is proclaimed Genghis Khan, universal ruler. He controls roughly 1 million square miles of grassland, nothing compared to the great empires of his time. China has 100 million people. The Islamic Caliphate stretches from Spain to India. Europe is fragmented into dozens of kingdoms. Nobody fears the Mongols, they're just another steppe tribe, nomadic herders, backward, uncivilized. Irrelevant to the great powers of the world. 21 years later, Genghis Khan is dead, and the Mongol Empire controls 12 million square miles, from Korea to Eastern Europe, from Siberia to the Persian Gulf, more territory than Rome conquered in 4 centuries, more land than any empire before or since, not through slow expansion, not through gradual conquest, through total war, through systematic terror, through a military machine so efficient it destroyed everything in its path. This is how the Mongols became the fastest conquerors in human history, and why entire civilizations chose suicide over surrender. Genghis Khan didn't invent cavalry warfare, didn't invent the composite bow, didn't invent siege weapons or espionage or psychological warfare. He perfected all of them, combined them into a system no one could defeat, built an army that moved faster, hit harder, and terrified enemies more completely than anything the world had ever seen. The Mongol strategy was simple: offer every city, every kingdom, every enemy the same choice: surrender immediately and live. Your leaders might die, but your people survive. Your city stays standing, you pay tribute and provide soldiers, but you keep your religion, your customs, your local government. Life continues under Mongol rule. Or resist, fight back, defend your wall, and the Mongols will kill everyone, every man, woman, child. They will burn your city to the ground, pile skulls and pyramids as a warning, erase your civilization from existence, make your name synonymous with destruction for 1,000 years. Most enemies thought this was a bluff, propaganda, intimidation tactics. The Mongols were outnumbered everywhere they went, faced cities with populations in the hundreds of thousands, walls that had stood for centuries, professional armies. How could nomadic horsemen destroy civilization? So they resisted and learned the Mongols never bluff. When the city of Nishapur killed a Mongol general in 1221, Genghis Khan's daughter demanded revenge. The Mongols took the city, executed every living thing: humans, dogs, cats, even rats. Historians estimate 1.7 million dead. The survivors were ordered to decapitate every corpse and pile the skulls in separate pyramids. Men's skulls, women's skulls, children's skulls. The pyramids could be seen for miles, a message to the next city. This is what resistance costs. After Nishapur, fewer cities resisted. Word spread: the Mongols don't negotiate after you fight, don't show mercy after defiance, surrender immediately or face annihilation. This was the genius of Mongol strategy. Every massacre was an investment, every pyramid of skulls was advertising. The more brutal the destruction, the faster future enemies surrendered. Terror as force multiplier. One horrific example preventing 10 future battles. By the time the Mongols reached a new region, their reputation preceded them. Cities opened their gates without a fight. Rulers fled. Armies dissolved, because everyone had heard what happened to those who resisted, and nobody wanted to be the next Nishapur. Terror alone doesn't conquer empires. The Mongols had military advantages that made them nearly unbeatable in open battle. Their cavalry could cover 60-70 miles per day. Roman legions managed 15-20 miles. European knights maybe 25 miles. Mongol armies moved 3 times faster than anyone else. Could appear where enemies thought they were hundreds of miles away. Could retreat faster than pursuers could follow. Could encircle armies before they realized they were surrounded. Speed was everything. Speed meant surprise, meant choosing when and where to fight, meant escaping if outnumbered, meant the enemy never knew where the Mongols actually were. Every Mongol warrior carried multiple horses, rotated between them to prevent exhaustion, could ride for days without stopping, lived in the saddle, ate dried meat and mare's milk without dismounting, slept while riding. The entire army was mobile. No slow supply trains, no vulnerable baggage. Everything they needed was on horseback or could be taken from conquered territories. European and Chinese armies needed weeks to gather supplies, organize logistics, march to battle. Mongols just rode. Arrived before defenders were ready, struck before reinforcements could arrive, disappeared before counterattacks could form. The composite bow gave them devastating firepower, could shoot 300 yards accurately, could penetrate armor at 100 yards. Every Mongol warrior trained from childhood could shoot while riding at full gallop, could shoot forward, backward, sideways, 40 arrows in 2 minutes. A Mongol army of 20,000 could fire 400,000 arrows in 2 minutes. The sky turned black, arrows fell like rain, defenders couldn't advance, couldn't retreat. Just died under constant bombardment while the Mongols circled at distance, unreachable, unstoppable. Genghis Khan built his army on meritocracy, radical concept for the 13th century. Europe had hereditary nobility. China had bureaucratic examination systems favoring the educated elite. Islamic empires had tribal and family loyalties. The Mongols promoted based on ability. A shepherd could become a general if he showed talent. A captured enemy could rise to command if he proved loyal. Birth meant nothing, results meant everything. This created an officer corps of genuine military genius. No incompetent nobles commanding because of family connections. No political appointees leading armies, just the best fighters, the best strategists, the best leaders, promoted based on performance in battle. The decimal system organized the entire army. Units of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, each level commanded by a proven warrior. Orders flowed from Genghis Khan through the 10,000 commanders to the 1,000 commanders to the 100 commanders to the 10 commanders to the individual soldier. Communication was fast, accountability was absolute. If a unit of 10 failed, the commander of 10 was executed. If a unit of 1,000 failed, the commander of 1,000 was executed. No excuses, no second chances. This created intense unit cohesion. Every soldier knew his 9 comrades, trained with them, fought beside them. Success or failure was collective. Individual cowardice meant the entire unit was punished. This eliminated desertion, prevented panic, enforced discipline without complex military bureaucracy. Intelligence networks were extraordinary. Genghis Khan sent spies years before invasions, merchants, travelers. Diplomats, they mapped cities, identified defenses, located resources, assessed military strength, found internal divisions, political conflicts, unpopular rulers. By the time Mongol armies arrived, they knew everything: which gates were weakest, which generals were incompetent, which nobles might betray their rulers, which cities had food stockpiles, which routes avoided natural barriers. They fought with perfect information while enemies fought blind. Psychological operations were systematic. Before attacking, the Mongols sent envoys, offered surrender terms, showed letters from other cities that had submitted peacefully and survived, showed drawings of cities that resisted and were annihilated, gave rulers time to consider, time to hear rumors, time for panic to spread among the population. Many cities surrendered during this period, rulers calculating that submission was better than destruction. The Mongols wanted this, wanted the fear to do the work. Wanted cities opening gates rather than forcing sieges. Every peaceful surrender saved Mongol lives and resources for the next target. When cities did resist, the Mongols used captured populations as human shields and siege workers, forced civilians from previous conquests to fill moats, build siege ramps, push siege towers. Defenders faced a choice: kill their own people being driven forward by Mongol soldiers, or let the siege works advance. Either way, the Mongols won. Either defenders wasted arrows killing civilians and broke their own morale, or the siege progressed without Mongol casualties. This was brutal efficiency. No sentiment, no honor, just ruthless logic applied to warfare. Siege warfare expertise came from conquered Chinese and Persian engineers. The Mongols had no siege tradition. Steppe nomads didn't build walls or attack fortifications. But Genghis Khan recognized the limitation, recruited engineers from every conquered civilization, forced them to serve, teach, build weapons. The Mongols learned, adopted catapults, trebuchets, siege towers, mining incendiary weapons, combined Chinese gunpowder weapons with Persian siege techniques with their own mobility. Created siege capabilities no one expected from horse nomads. Cities that thought walls made them safe learned otherwise. The Mongols brought siege trains, surrounded cities, waited patiently, or stormed walls with overwhelming force. Either way, walls didn't save anyone. Logistics were solved through systematic conquest. The Mongols didn't carry food for long campaigns, they took it. Every conquered region was required to provide supplies, horses, soldiers. The empire fed itself through tribute and plunder. This created a self-sustaining war machine. The more they conquered, the more resources they had. The more soldiers they could field, the faster they could expand. Rome took centuries to build infrastructure supporting their legions. The Mongols just took everything they needed from the territories they conquered and kept moving. 1211, the Mongols invade Jin China. Population 50 million, professional army, advanced fortifications, gunpowder weapons. The Jin dynasty thinks they can hold the Great Wall, stop the barbarians at the border. The Mongols don't attack the wall, they ride around it, find gaps, bribe gatekeepers, infiltrate. Once inside, they don't besiege major cities immediately. They destroy the countryside, burn crops, massacre villages, cut supply lines. Jin armies chase them. The Mongols retreat. Lead Chinese forces into ambushes, destroy them piecemeal. By 1215, Beijing falls. The Jin dynasty, which had ruled northern China for a century, is broken, not destroyed yet. That takes another 20 years, but broken, unable to resist effectively, done as a regional power. While conquering China, Genghis Khan simultaneously invades Central Asia. The Khwarezmian Empire controlled modern Iran, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan. Population 15 million, wealthy from Silk Road trade, professional armies, fortified cities. In 1219, the Khwarezmian Shah made a fatal mistake. He executed Mongol envoys and merchants, killed 450 people under diplomatic protection. Genghis Khan demanded the governor responsible be handed over. The Shah refused. executed the next Mongol envoy by shaving his beard and sending him back humiliated. This was war. Genghis Khan assembled 100,000 warriors, crossed the most inhospitable desert in Central Asia to attack from an unexpected direction. The Khwarezmians thought the desert impassable for large armies, didn't guard that approach. The Mongols emerged from the wasteland like demons, struck cities before defenses could organize. The Shah had 400,000 soldiers, but he divided them to defend individual cities. The Mongols concentrated force, attacked cities one at a time with overwhelming numbers, destroyed each garrison before it could be reinforced. The strategy of defeat in detail. Face 400,000 enemies by never fighting all of them at once. Just 40,000 here, 60,000 there, always outnumbering the local defenders even while outnumbered overall. City after city fell. Bukhara, Samarkand, Merv, Herat, Nishapur, each conquest more brutal than the last, each massacre more complete. Survivors fled west carrying stories of horror, Mongol warriors who drank blood, who ate human flesh, who killed everything living. Most of it was exaggeration, but the exaggerations helped, made defenders panic, made armies break before battle, made rulers flee rather than organize resistance. By 1221, the Khwarezmian Empire was annihilated, entire cities erased, irrigation systems destroyed, regions depopulated, areas that had been prosperous for 1,000 years became wasteland. The Shah died in exile, his son was hunted across Persia and killed. The dynasty ended, the empire vanished from history. 2 years, the Mongols destroyed an empire in 2 years. Rome took 200 years to conquer the Mediterranean. The Mongols conquered an equivalent area in 24 months, and they were simultaneously fighting in China, raiding into Russia, and preparing invasions of Korea. Multiple fronts, multiple wars, all prosecuted with the same brutal efficiency. 1223, Mongol armies raid into Russia and Ukraine, defeat a coalition of Russian princes and Cuman warriors at the Battle of Kalka River. Russian forces outnumber the Mongols 2-1, doesn't matter. The Mongols use feigned retreat, pretend to flee. Russians pursue in disorder. The Mongols turn, encircle, annihilate, capture the Russian princes. The Mongols celebrate victory by laying the captured princes under wooden boards. Then the Mongol commanders sit on the boards and feast while the princes are crushed to death beneath them. This sends a message to Russia: we can kill you whenever we want. This is what happens to your leaders. 15 years later, the Mongols return and conquer all of Russia. The speed of expansion was unprecedented. In 1206, the Mongols controlled Mongolia. By 1215, northern China. By 1221, Central Asia and Persia. By 1227, when Genghis Khan died, the empire stretched from Korea to the Caspian Sea. 12 million square miles, conquered in 21 years. Rome at its peak controlled 5 million square miles, built over 400 years. The Mongols conquered more than twice as much in 1/20th the time. The human cost was apocalyptic. Modern historians estimate the Mongol conquests killed 40 million people, roughly 11% of the world's population. In comparison, World War II killed 3% of global population. The Mongols killed proportionally 4 times more. Entire cities were depopulated. Entire regions became uninhabited. Persian historians describe areas where you could ride for days without seeing a living human. Where cities that once held hundreds of thousands now had populations of a few hundred survivors. Where irrigation systems collapsed because there was nobody left to maintain them. Where farmland returned to wilderness because there were no farmers. Nishapur, 1.7 million dead. Merv, possibly 700,000 dead. Herat, multiple massacres totaling hundreds of thousands. Urgench, entire population killed, city flooded by diverting a river. Baghdad in 1258 after Genghis Khan but following his methods. 200,000 100,000 dead depending on estimates. The Mongols threw bodies in the Tigris River until it ran black with blood and red with books from destroyed libraries. The destruction of Baghdad ended the Islamic Golden Age. Centers of learning erased, scientific progress stopped, cultural achievements destroyed. The Middle East never fully recovered. But here's the critical point. The Mongols didn't kill for pleasure, killed for strategy. Every massacre served a purpose, demonstrated the cost of resistance, made the next city more likely to surrender, made the next kingdom more willing to submit. The brutality was calculated, was intentional, was effective. By the end of Genghis Khan's life, most cities surrendered without fighting. Most rulers submitted rather than resist. The terror had done its work. The Mongols could conquer with minimal casualties because everyone had seen what happened to those who fought. The environmental destruction was equally severe. Mongol warfare destroyed agricultural systems across Central Asia. Irrigation networks in Persia that had functioned for thousands of years were wrecked, never fully rebuilt. Deforestation from siege warfare. depopulation leaving farms untended. Cities that were commercial and cultural centers became ruins. The Silk Road trade routes that had connected east and west for centuries were disrupted. Took generations to recover. Some areas never did. Modern Afghanistan, parts of Iran, Central Asian regions are still suffering economic consequences from Mongol destruction 800 years ago. Yet there was a paradox. The Mongol Empire, once established, created stability. The Pax Mongolica, Mongol peace, protected trade, guaranteed safe passage for merchants, enforced law across the entire empire. Religious tolerance was mandated. Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, shamans all permitted to practice. Meritocracy meant talent rose regardless of ethnicity. A Persian could govern in China. A Chinese engineer could work in Persia. Technology and ideas spread across Eurasia faster than ever before. Paper money, gunpowder weapons, printing, mathematics, all moved along Mongol trade routes. The Mongols destroyed civilizations but then connected the survivors in ways that hadn't been possible before. 1227. Genghis Khan dies campaigning against the Western Xia Kingdom in northwestern China. His death is kept secret for months. The army completes the conquest, massacres the entire Western Xia population as Genghis Khan ordered, possibly 1 to 2 million dead. Final act of terror to cement the empire. Then the generals return to Mongolia for the succession. Genghis Khan's empire is divided among his sons and grandsons. This should have meant fragmentation. Should have meant civil war and collapse. Instead, the Mongol expansion accelerated. Ojde Khan, third son, becomes Great Khan, continues expansion in all directions, completes conquest of Jin China by 1234, invades Europe in 1236. Batu Khan, Genghis Khan's grandson, leads 150,000 warriors west, conquers Russia in 3 years, destroys Kiev in 1240, invades Poland and Hungary in 1241, defeats European armies at Liegnitz and Moh. European knights are annihilated. Cavalry charges broken by Mongol arrows and mobility. Heavy armor useless against composite bows. Mongol forces reach Vienna, are preparing to invade Germany, France, Italy. Then Ojde Khan dies. The Mongol armies withdraw for the succession. Europe is saved by chance, by political timing, not by military defense. If Ojde had lived another 5 years, the Mongols might have conquered Western Europe. They had defeated every European army they faced, had mobility and firepower advantages that European feudal forces couldn't counter. The withdrawal to elect a new Great Khan gave Europe time. Time to hear about Mongol tactics, time to prepare, time to get lucky, because when the Mongols returned decades later, their focus had shifted. Internal politics, conquering Song China, invading the Middle East. Europe was never the priority again. Mongol Khan expands into the Middle East in the 1250s. Hulagu Khan destroys the assassin strongholds in Persia, captures Baghdad in 1258, ends the Abbasid Caliphate, kills the caliph by rolling him in a carpet and trampling him with horses, because Mongol superstition said spilling royal blood brought bad luck. So they killed royalty without technically spilling blood, crushed, strangled, suffocated, but not cut. The destruction of Baghdad shocked the Islamic world. The city that had been the center of learning and culture for 500 years, reduced to ruins, libraries burned, scholars killed, the House of Wisdom destroyed. Kublai Khan completes conquest of Song China by 1279, establishes the Yuan dynasty. Mongols now rule the most populous, wealthiest, most advanced civilization on Earth. Try to invade Japan in 1274 and 1281. Both invasions are destroyed by typhoons. The Japanese call them kamikaze, divine winds, the gods protecting Japan. In reality, the Mongols were weakened by naval warfare, unfamiliarity, and bad weather timing. But the invasions fail. Japan survives, one of the few major powers the Mongols never conquered. By 1300, the Mongol Empire at its peak controls 24 million square kilometers, 16% of Earth's land area. Largest contiguous empire in human history, from Korea to Hungary, from Siberia to Vietnam, ruled by Genghis Khan's descendants, connected by trade routes, administered by a system combining Mongol military control with local bureaucratic governance. It was an empire built on terror and maintained through systematic organization. Brutal in creation, relatively stable in operation, as long as you paid tribute and obeyed. The Mongols left you alone, resist, and they destroyed you completely. The Mongol Empire eventually fragmented, divided into 4 khanates that gradually became independent. The Yuan dynasty in China was overthrown by the Ming dynasty in 1368. The Golden Horde in Russia weakened and collapsed by the 1500s. The Ilkhanate in Persia converted to Islam and fragmented. The Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia broke into smaller states. By 1500, the unified Mongol Empire was gone, but the impact remained. The Mongol conquests changed world history permanently. They connected East and West in unprecedented ways, made cultural and technological exchange possible on a scale that hadn't existed before. The Black Death spread along Mongol trade routes in the 1340s, killed 1/3 of Europe's population, 1/2 of China's population. The Mongols didn't cause the plague, but their empire created the conditions for its spread, connected populations that had been isolated. Created trade networks that carried goods, ideas, and diseases across continents. Military tactics evolved. European armies studied Mongol methods, adopted light cavalry, improved mobility, developed better intelligence gathering. The Mongol threat forced technological advancement, forced organizational improvement. European kingdoms that survived had to adapt, had to become more efficient, more professional. The Renaissance military revolution has roots in lessons learned from Mongol invasions. The genetic legacy is measurable. Modern genetic studies show that 16 million men alive today descend from Genghis Khan, 0.5% of the world's male population. His sons and grandsons took hundreds of wives and concubines from conquered populations, created enormous family lineages that spread across Asia. This isn't ancient history. This is genetic impact visible in modern populations. The strategic lessons remain relevant. The Mongols proved that speed and mobility can overcome numerical disadvantage, that psychological warfare can achieve more than direct combat, that meritocracy creates better organizations than hereditary systems, that intelligence and information superiority matter more than just force, that combining different technologies and tactics from multiple cultures creates advantages. Modern militaries study Mongol campaigns. Study the decimal organization, study the intelligence networks, study the use of terror as strategic tool. But there's an uncomfortable truth. The Mongols succeeded because they were willing to do anything. Kill anyone, destroy anything, no moral limits, no humanitarian considerations, just ruthless pursuit of conquest. They offered surrender or annihilation, made the choice simple, made the cost of resistance so high that most enemies chose submission. This worked. The terror was effective. The massacres achieved their strategic goals. Cities that resisted were destroyed so completely that the next 10 cities surrendered without fighting. Modern warfare has rules. Geneva Conventions, international law, war crimes tribunals. The Mongols had none of that, operated in a world where total war was acceptable, where massacre was a valid tactic, where the only rule was victory. They succeeded precisely because they were willing to be more brutal than anyone else, more systematic in destruction, more complete in annihilation, and that willingness, that absolute ruthlessness made them unstoppable. This is cinematic history tales, where the greatest conquests get analyzed, where we understand how empires expand faster than thought possible, where we see what total war actually means. Subscribe because the Mongol story isn't about noble warriors or honorable combat. It's about strategic terror applied systematically, about speed and mobility combined with absolute ruthlessness, about what happens when an organization optimizes purely for conquest with no ethical constraints. The Mongols conquered more land in 25 years than Rome did in 400 years because they were willing to do things Rome wouldn't. Kill on scales Rome didn't, move faster than Rome could, and make surrender look better than resistance. That's the lesson. Victory often goes to whoever is willing to be most ruthless, most systematic, most absolutely committed to winning regardless of cost. The Mongols were all three, and that's why they built the largest land empire in human history.